Hi, today we're going to go quickly through the populist movement and the problems facing farmers in the late 1800s. We've touched on this a little bit with the boom and bust of the wheat belt. We're going to get a little bit into more like national politics that kind of cause problems for farmers and their political response to that. So let's get going. One of the first major causes of problems for farmers is deflation, right? There's less money in circulation, which increases the value of money. And then that increases purchasing power. Now, what that means for farmers is that the price of their crop is lower, deflated prices, lower prices, right? This also means money is more valuable, and it means the cost of a loan, which is an interest rate, is going to go up, and mortgage rates are going to go up. And like we saw with the bust of the wheat belt, most farmers are tenant farmers. They are mortgaging their land, and they need loans. And so these are all becoming more expensive. So farmers are going to take that discontent, and they are going to channel that towards Eastern banks, right? And they were also going to channel that towards the federal government, especially with what they dubbed the crime of 73, is when the federal government stopped the coinage of silver. So money used to be backed by gold, where your dollar bill represented an actual amount of gold somewhere. And it also used to be backed by silver, right? Usually at a ratio of 16 or 17 to 1, right? So 1 ounce of gold, 16 ounces of silver, it's the same. The point is, the more hard metal backing you have, the more money you can then print. So when they stopped printing dollars backed by silver, this led to deflation. And so the farmers think that this was a major, major problem, right? Okay, you want to raise prices and make it easier to be a farmer? Magic solution, silver bullet. It's like killing a werewolf. Free silver. Okay, now, also, like we learned before, we have an overproduction, right? New technology means we're producing more, lowering the price of goods, okay? And then lastly, tariffs. Tariffs might have helped Andrew Carnegie's steel empire, but it hurts farmers. It decreases exports because when we pass tariffs in other countries, they pass tariffs on us, which means we cannot sell our surplus to other countries anymore. So we have an oversupply. Normally, that's not a problem if you can sell overseas. None able to sell overseas. Tariffs become a problem for farmers as well. And then lastly, big business policies, especially that of railroads, are hard on farmers. They are overcharging small farmers. They're not allowing rebates like Rockefeller gets with his oil empire, right? And so along with low prices for their crop, they have higher prices for shipping goods. And so the farmers are going to look at big business policies, big banking, and the federal government, and they're going to say, this is all working for somebody else, not the farmer. And they don't matter which party they look to, it's not helping the farmer, right? So if I can get down to this here, they have a couple solutions. Now, they try some things. They basically try unionizing, okay, and they try cooperatives and cartels. Cooperatives and the Grange, and it's a union or a cartel. It depends on how you want to look at it. Basically, they're trying to get farmers together to negotiate collectively with railroads and to hold supply off the market, right? Still have these kinds of solutions today. Neither of them could get enough farmers to really make a big enough difference in the price of goods, especially when you have larger policies like deflation and tariffs working against them, right? So seeing no solutions, the farmers move to politics, and they create the People Party, also known as like a populist movement. Okay, a populist movement is when it's not established party members leading it, it's more like people. And in the modern day, we've seen 2 recent populist movements, one being Donald Trump's kind of takeover of the Republican Party, and the other being Bernie Sanders in the Democratic Party. Both different, but populist elements in that there, okay? So we have the populist movement, right? And their platform basically centers on one major thing, and that's that magic silver bullet. If you just coin silver again, deflation stops and a lot of the problems go away, right? But they also want the federal government to control the railroads, right? Through that Interstate Commerce Commission, right? But they want like a utility, like they want the federal government to be managing that and to create fair rates and all that kind of stuff, right? It's a pretty radical step. They also are the first to propose a graduated income tax. So this is pretty radical for them back then because we didn't have an income tax yet at the federal level. And they wanted that to be a gradual one where the more money you make, the higher rate of taxes you are going to pay. And it goes up on a graduated plane, right? Which is what we have today. Okay. They wanted to reduce tariffs. They wanted what is called the sub-treasury plan, which would be a government plan to put money into banks. This sort of comes into fruition before Woodrow Wilson is president, but really once Wilson's president in the late of the progressive movement in the 1910s to 20s, we have the Federal Reserve, right? Which is close. It's not quite the same as a sub-treasury plan, right? And then they also want the direct election of senators, which we didn't have at this point. The state representatives chose their senators, right? Which all of this stuff actually ends up, or most of this stuff actually ends up happening later on, but not as a result of the populist movement. And we'll talk about that more when we get to the progressives, but historians ask a question, like, is progressivism an extension of populism? Because if it is, then we can say that progressivism is a movement by the people, right? A lot of historians will say that that's not true, that progressivism is a way to appease the populace without actually helping the people. Instead of it's serving this, new middle class that doesn't want to help the lower class. It all depends on the perspective. We're going to engage with that a lot more when we get to the actual progressive era. Okay, so in 1896, this populism had been somewhat successful at electing local representatives. In 1896, they decided to back William Jennings Bryan, who was a silver Democrat, which basically means he supported the free coinage of silver, which was like the #1 issue for the populists, right? So William Jennings Bryan, 3 times failed presidential candidate, runs as the pro-silver Democrat. He's unable to win the Northeast because he cannot win the labor vote. So labor unions do not vote with the Democrats and the farmers. If you could have somehow taken that poor farmer and teamed him up with that working class immigrant, you maybe could have got something there. But he was unable to do that. So eventually the Populist Party just bleeds away. And then we have progressivism, which is a more mainstream, the 2 political parties. So we have a failed populist movement in the 1890s as a result of the farmers. Problems they mostly are encountering have to do with free silver. Okay, see you in the next one.